candidate for U.S. Senate, Christine Serrano Glassner. She's a fantastic woman. She's a fantastic woman, and I think, look, you know what? My record is very unblemished for support. I'm giving her my complete and total endorsement.
It's Wednesday, 15 May, in the year of our Lord, 2024. Welcome to the early evening edition of the War Room. Last hour, nitroglycerin on fire. Thank you for joining us, particularly you 4-hour day folks, great force multipliers. In the, I believe, and I'm trying to check this out, the biggest political rally in modern American history, President Trump on Saturday at Wildwood, New Jersey, 100,000 people, and that's local officials telling us that. Of course, the Bruce Springsteen crowd and everybody, they're all in meltdown. But we're honored now to have Christine Serrano Glassner, who got the shout out and the endorsement by the president for Senate. Christine, first off, I just want to make sure I understand this, because you're the sister of Mark Serrano, who's one of the smartest guys in marketing and in politics, and you're the wife of Michael Glassner, who's literally a legend for what he's doing for President Trump on the campaign. I mean, putting on that massive rally he does all the time. My question is, what was harder? Was it growing up with Serrano's sister, or is it being married to Glassner?
Well, you know, Steve, and you said it yourself, they are both brilliant guys. I see them as sweethearts, but, you know, the rest of the world sees them as being really tenacious. I was the big sister to Mark, so I thought it was pretty good. It's always easier when you're the bigger one. So it's been good. But Saturday was amazing. Absolutely amazing. You had to be there and see the size of this crowd. And they were so enthusiastic. And a lot of people have commented on the fact that when they left, when the crowd dispersed, there was no garbage left. There was no damage done. Wildwood was intact, and I think the businesses did really, really well that day, and they needed that crowd because it wasn't really summer weather yet. So it was exciting, and getting that endorsement from President Trump means everything. It's really not just for me and this race, but it's for New Jersey. It's President Trump saying New Jersey is in play, and he believes it's winnable. And if you look at the polls, he's only 5 points below where his poll, and I'm only 5 points below Andy Kim in a three-way race. So New Jersey is definitely going to vote differently this year, and we're going to parlay that. Oh, look at that. You can see the crowd. It was just spectacular. It was really a great day, and we are fighting tough.
This is historic, and so tell me about it, because I know so many people from New Jersey, and hey, I know that MAGA runs deep in that state. That's a state of hardworking patriots, but it's been blue for so long, and deep blue. Talk to us about it. Talk about this tectonic plate shift you see of people coming to the MAGA policies and the reason behind it, and why, therefore, you're competitive in this race. And President Trump, I will tell you, only Minnesota, I think, is he more, maybe Virginia, maybe New Mexico. He is obsessed with winning New Jersey, not just because Bedminster's there and it is a summer home, but he knows so many people there, and he just can't understand why they vote blue. Tell me about the state, tell me about the citizens, and tell me about your race.
So, you know, first I'll talk about the primary. You know that you have highly dedicated Republicans in New Jersey, and they are dedicated and loyal to President Trump, because when President Trump was in office, New Jersey was doing well. It's very simple in New Jersey. It's primarily the economy, and of course it's the border, but New Jersey is already one of the most expensive states in the country because it's one of the highest tax states in the country. I talk to people every day. I was on with somebody from one of the unions yesterday, and they're telling me their rank and file members are voting for Trump. I'm talking to people in different communities, the Indian community, the Hispanic community. They're telling me the same thing, the Jewish community. And so much of it was because they want to see the policies from 4 years ago back in place. When the country was strong, we didn't have wars overseas. And that's all Biden. We know that. He's got blood on his hands from his weakness. Donald Trump's back in office is going to really bring people out in New Jersey. And they're going to continue to vote Republican, and we know that. We feel good about it. We feel strong. But the other thing that you didn't see in that clip that's really important to note is that I have a primary, but it's against an anti-Trumper. And people are waking up to that, and they need to realize that if we're going to be on board for Trump, get him in office to fix this country, then that means that we need everybody to understand that they've got to support all of the loyal Trump candidates up and down that ballot. And that's why he endorsed me, because he knows if he's got somebody strong like me, and that is my reputation. I don't normally tell people this, Steve, but my husband calls me the John Deere tractor because he knows I just keep on moving forward and you can't stop me. I may not be the fastest in the pack, but it's like the rabbit and the tortoise. I win, right, as the tortoise, because I just keep moving forward, and I'm doing that for Donald Trump, and we're going to win this state, and we're going to repair this economy, and we're going to close that border, and we're going to start drilling for oil, and people are going to be able to save for their futures, and young people are going to be able to move to New Jersey and buy homes again, because that's a big problem here, and I'm going to be a part of that solution for him.
No, I know. The folks I know from New Jersey, the kids don't want to move away. They have to move away because of the cost of living and the inability to buy a home and get a stake in this economy. Tell me, how did you guys get 100,000 people, and particularly the demographic? There were so many young people. Scott Presler was doing social media, and it was nothing but young people. How did you guys bring out, what is driving so many young people, many of whom have never been eligible to vote or didn't vote for President Trump last time? What is driving that?
Well, what we're seeing in these rallies is more and more young people. So it wasn't just this rally, it's all of the rallies. I think what it is it's simple. A lot of these young people are getting out of college. They can't return to their homes and get jobs. They're unable to purchase homes. They can't even afford to rent apartments, so they have to go back and live with their parents. And so they're equating that with a Biden economy, Bidenomics. And they're coming out and they're paying attention and they're really learning. I've got young people working for me on my campaign right now, kids that are getting out of college, and they're telling me more and more of their friends are saying, hey, what's going on? And they're looking back at what we had 4 years ago and they're saying, this is what we need. Remember, the kids that are getting out of college now are the ones that suffered through COVID. And they know how everything got shut down and they don't want to see that happen again. And they don't trust Biden, because it's always possible that we could go back to some kind of a disaster where they take over and take people's rights away from them. And they don't want to see that. So we're seeing this crowd was amazing. I talked to people. I was out in that crowd, working that crowd, making sure they knew that we had this race going on. And we had folks from Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York, Florida. They were coming from all over. A lot of folks from Jersey, but people from all over, because they want to see Donald Trump and they want to hear what he has to say and they want to know what the solutions are going to be. And he delivered. His speech, if you haven't seen it, you really got to watch it, because people were so excited and feeling really confident. And we're going to keep that momentum moving. And we're going to keep the folks in New Jersey educated so they come out and vote.
No, he was on fire. Let's talk about that. So you're the Trump endorsed candidate for the Senate in the primary against kind of an anti or never Trumper. Then the general. I worked with Phil Murphy at Goldman Sachs many decades ago. His wife was originally, I think, not just in the race, leading the race. What happened that she ended up dropping out? And it looks like Andy Kim would be your opponent. So
Andy Kim is definitely going to be the opponent. Bob Menendez keeps saying he's going to run as an independent, and I certainly hope he does. You know, it's a mystery as to why Tammy Murphy dropped out. They haven't said why she dropped out. She lost in her own county. And remember, New Jersey is a little bit different, where we have an election pretty much in each of the 21 counties, and she lost her own home county, and that was not a very good start for her at all. Andy Kim was starting to win, and they dropped out before that process even ended. So I just assume it could have been internal polling. I'm not sure what it was, because they haven't revealed it. But she's out, Andy Kim's in, and we know how liberal he is. We know what a liberal voter he is. If we're going to take the Senate, which we need to, when Donald Trump is back in office, we're going to need a Republican majority in the House and the Senate. We're going to need to make sure that we've got folks that are going to vote with Donald Trump in order to get sound economic policies and solutions back in place. And that is what I will do. That's why I'm running, to make sure that it's the people, right? You look at Bob Menendez. Bob Menendez focused on himself. I mean, maybe there were some good times, but he went way off track. And in New Jersey, people feel that he's always been corrupt. It's 50 years in government. I don't think he ever had any other job. And so it's easy to fall into that path. But that's not what we need. We need somebody with integrity, and we need people with common sense more than anything. And to constantly be voting far to the left is not common sense at all. It's not something, I feel like there's never a plan with the Biden administration. They put up legislation, he signs it into order, and then things start to collapse. Why? Because they don't have a plan. They don't look down the road. That's what we need. Common sense people who understand this is about the people. For me, this is about the people in New Jersey. It's about representing them and making sure that I come back and not travel around 1 year out of a term around the state, but to travel around all of the time, connecting with the people in this state and making sure that they know that I'm listening, I have their back, and I'm going to vote on their behalf to benefit them. That's what we need. We need sound legislators that are going to keep the people first, policy second.
Okay, give us some details. When's the primary? I want social media. Everybody's going to want to pile into your site because you're the Trump-endorsed candidate. And, of course, Serrano's older sister and Glassner's wife, and those two guys are revered in our movement. So where do people go? What's the details of the primary? Got to win the primary first.
Well, I want them to come to Christine4NJ.com. You can see the signs right behind me, Christine4NJ.com. We need all the help and support we can get. The primary is in about 3 weeks. It's June 4th. We need people to shout us out, join our social media. If you can make a donation, we're happy to take it, any amount. But please come and see us because we're in a battle here, and we're going to make sure that we win this battle. I'm out 7 days a week, and I have been since I started this last summer, and I'm not going to stop until we make sure that we win New Jersey.
The John Deere of this election, or so says Glassner. We got tremendous respect for Michael Glassner. Ma'am, thank you so much. Look forward to having you back on here with an update in a week or two.
Thank you, Steve. Good to see you.
Go to that site right now. Pile into it. Learn more about it. This is a Trump-endorsed candidate. We need the Senate, and more importantly, we need MAGA in the Senate. Raynard Jackson is MAGA. Raynard, we got a big event next week. You've put together just an incredible slate. I'm honored to be one of the keynote speakers, but I think I rank 4th or 5th in the lineup. Tell us about it, and I want to particularly know how people can still get tickets, where it's going to be, how people can attend, because you get to see a lot of the War Room posse or a lot of the War Room team are going to be there live and in person.
Yeah, Steve, thank you so much for agreeing to put this together. Without your help, this would not exist. But this is our fourth annual, Steve, Minority Conservative Economic Summit. It's in Washington, D.C. Downtown. It's going to be, matter of fact, at the Hilton, Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, 425 New Jersey Avenue, Steve. And our theme for this year's conference is a vision for economic opportunity and empowerment in the 21st century. So, Steve, what we have is the largest gathering of conservative minority entrepreneurs. We're going to have the top Black, Asian, Hispanic, and Indian entrepreneurs in the country, and who are all conservative, MAGA supporting. And we have keynote speakers like you, Steve. We have Scott Bessent, one of the top hedge fund managers in the country. We got Ken Langone, the co-founder of Home Depot. And what's interesting, Steve, is, as you know, it's one thing for a well-to-do person to send you money to a cause, but when they invest their time, that shows a commitment. Anybody can write a check, but when you spend time, you can make more money, Steve, but you can't make more time. So to get people like you to show up, like Scott Bessent, to get Ken Langone to show up, we got Royce White will be in the house. Steve, and we have Dr. John Sibley Butler, who was on our Martin Luther King show back in January, and he knocked you out of your seat with his conversation. He'll be in the house.
It's amazing.
And yeah, so Steve, all these guys are flying in from all across the country. And what we want to know, Steve, is these are not startup companies. These are mature, successful companies. So the theme is not, okay, fill out this piece of paperwork or do this, do that. Scott Bessent and Ken Langone and you, Steve, have committed to saying, okay, what do you need from us to open up doors of opportunity to get you to the next level? And that's what the whole purpose of this conference is about, not to complain about what racism and DEI, but how can we take these successful business owners, Steve, and take them to the next level?
By the way, I think you agree. I think one of the best speeches I ever gave was 2 years ago. It was at the Willard But man, I
Yes.
gave a fire breather on access to capital. When you talk that they don't need affirmative action. They don't need this. You get access to capital, to the entrepreneurial community, regardless of ethnicity or race or religion. You're going to see a world of fire. That's the kind of the animal spirits that capitalism unleashes. And this is why I love this conference. I'm glad you've got some heavy hitters. Like I said, I think I'm batting third or fourth in that lineup. But it's just amazing. You're right. For Ken Langone and Scott Besson to commit their time, and others, the other speakers you got are just incredible. And Brother Sibley, you're right. One of the best conversations. He's old school, original gangster, right? He's OG.
And Steve, you got to have him on the War Room before the event because he loves your show. Loves it.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do a walk up of the whole thing. Now, once again, but here's what I want. I want everybody's in the area that can make it. I want to make sure they have access to this. So right now, where do they go? Where do they go, Brother Raynard, to get access to tickets, to get access to what we're going to do on live stream, all of it?
Yeah, go to Black American for a Better Future, BAFBF.org, Black American for a Better Future, BAFBF.org. And Steve, to me, if Trump and MAGA wants to substantively engage with the black community and move the needle in the black vote, Steve, this is where you need to be at next week. Because I tell you, Steve, when these entrepreneurs go back to their hometowns and home cities, they're going to spread this word that MAGA has nothing to do with racism. MAGA is an opportunity for you to participate in the American dream, and Donald Trump is the leader of that dream. And Steve, I'm hoping that the president will watch this next week, and he needs to meet with this group of entrepreneurs because they can get him over the hump in the black community. No question about it.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think he's a little tied up next week, but he will. I'm sure he's going to watch it. We're going to give him the clips, and believe me, this is close to his heart because I think we're going to get 40 or 50% of the African American male vote. You wait for it, and that's going to be a game changer, and particularly in some of these northern states. Raynard, what is your social media? Where do people get you if they got questions? They want more information.
Well, they can get me on Getter at Raynard Jackson. They can get me on Facebook, Twitter, The Real Raynard J on Twitter, Facebook, Getter, or just Google my name, Raynard Jackson. See my girl Ann Coulter there. She's been hard on my social life when black women see me with that photo, Steve. So, But yeah, come on out to the conference next week. We want to have this room packed with great conservative minority entrepreneurs from across the country.
Brother, thank you so much. Raynard Jackson, look forward to speaking there. Look forward to seeing you when we get back to D.C., brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am really excited. Well, I've been excited. The first two guests have been amazing. I'm really excited about the third guest, first time in the War Room. And I got to give you a little tip. Everybody knows that, and I know people get, God, Bannon, why are you putting up so much left-wing stuff? We've always played the cuts in the morning, the cold open from the nonsense and madness you see at MSNBC and BBC and of course CNN. And I put up a lot of stuff on my social media from The Guardian because I do think it's a paper that is one of the best edited papers in the world. Of course, it's all madness in there, but you need to see in information warfare, you got to understand where your enemy's coming from. So the other day, I think it was Monday, maybe Tuesday, I pick up The Guardian and, first thing early in the morning while I'm having a big pot of Warpath coffee, warpath.coffee, promo code WARM, get your 15% discount. So I'm having a big pot of Warpath, the dark roast, my favorite. And I come across a headline, the far right, that's in blazing red handle, the far right revealed U.S. university lecturer behind far right Twitter account and publishing house. Guardian investigation identifies Jonathan Keeperman, a former lecturer at the University of California, Irvine, as Lomez. And I read this thing, and it is so breathless. The Guardian has worked, this is pearl clutching at the highest levels. And the Guardian normally doesn't get like that, but they were in meltdown about their investigation. Of course, UCI is where Dr. Peter Navarro used to be on the faculty, I think, for many, many years before he got involved in MAGA in the 2016 campaign. Want to now honored to introduce Lomez, John Keeperman. First off, Brother Keeperman, explain to me why was the Guardian, which covers the right wing all over the world, why were they clutching their pearls? And kind of the whole article, and it's got to be 10,000 words long. It's so breathless, and it's like they've got the biggest scoop in history. What did you do to trigger these people? As I've never seen them triggered, quite frankly. Even I don't think Trump triggers them as much as Lomez, sir.
Steve, first of all, it's an honor to be on the show. I'm a big fan of you, big fan of the show. I have to say, before getting into my piece here, you are going to be one of the great American characters of the 21st century. And, history is going to smile on you kindly. So I appreciate everything you're doing, and I think I have a long answer to that. By the way,
I want to announce now that Jonathan Keeperman is becoming a contributor. I'm just kidding, but thank you for the kind words. Keeperman. I got the easiest job in the world. I got a platform, and we get people like you on, fascinating characters, and the audience just runs with it. So thank you so much. But and I thank you for the kind words. Why is the Guardian, of everything they cover, and as you know, we read it pretty religiously, and we put up a lot of articles from the Guardian because it sets the framework for how the globalists come after us. I don't think I've seen them triggered. Even Trump can't trigger them as much as Lomez. What in the hell did you do to mess with these folks?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I don't know that I have a great answer for you. I can speculate. One thing, and this is true of Peter Navarro, who was, in fact, my colleague at UCI going back to 2016, is those of us who worked in academic milieus, liberal milieus, who don't share those politics are seen as class defectors, class traitors in some way. And so they have a special ire for us because we're supposed to have a certain set of opinions. We're supposed to follow along with a certain set of liberal pieties, and any of us who buck those trends or even merely question it become their enemy because, any cult like that, any closed-minded group of thinkers are most threatened by people who challenge their orthodoxies. And so that's part of it. The other thing is there's a long history of doxing on the internet, and we can get into what it means to be an anonymous internet poster and the value of that and what kind of role we play in the ecosystem. But for a long time, and again, this journalist is not a journalist. He's an Antifa activist. It's very easy to see this in his past. There's some great reporting on him embedding himself with Antifa in Portland, whitewashing the violence of Antifa rioters in Portland going back to 2019. And what they want to do is harass ordinary people. They want to make it difficult for people who don't share their opinions to get employment. So they use these, what the rhetorician Richard Weaver called devil terms, things like fascist and far right, to describe what are ordinary common sense positions. And this is intended to keep us out of mainstream employment. It's also intended to create a paper trail. So if and when one of us might gain some prominence, these will be the first accusations that get thrown up on Wikipedia pages or that get caught up in these AI data crawlers, and they get to set the narrative for who we are. And then finally, the other thing they wanted to do is deter other people from doing something similar. In my case, I've started a successful publishing business, Passage.press. I would encourage everybody to go there. We're selling books, and I'd love to get into what kind of books those are. We have a promo code going right now, Bannon, on our website, free shipping on all our books. And because of this success, and I think because of some of this content that, again, runs against the particular orthodoxies of the people at The Guardian, they see us as an enemy. And this is their attempt at a kind of fifth generation information war to drone strike me and drone strike us out of existence. But I don't think it's going to work.
Oh, it's definitely not going to work. We're going to have your back, and others will have you back. One of the reasons we wanted to get you on and kind of break this. We're going to take a break. We're going to hold Jonathan in the second part of the fourth hour. You made so many great points there. When we come back, I definitely want to drill down on you're a class traitor, that the credentialed class, because right now the Democratic Party is really incredibly wealthy, progressive, left-wing billionaires, the credentialed class, and then the proletariat, right? The underclass, not even the working poor, but the underclass. That's what that's why they want so much. That's why they want the illegal alien invasion, all of it. But I think it's quite interesting because I keep arguing the kids on this revolution on the quads with this kind of combination of Marxism or neo-Marxism and Sharia supremacism. Kids are the symptom of the problem. They're not the problem. The problem's in the faculty lounge, the Marxists that have taken over the faculties, and the Marxists, quite frankly, in the administrations. So Lomez, which caused the Guardian to team up with an Antifa activist to write a big investigative report that really introduces us to a fascinating individual, not just a brilliant commentator and someone on social media, but the publisher of a really incredible publishing house. We're going to talk all about that. Remember, birchgold.com/worm. The End of the Dollar Empire, all 5 installments totally free, including the latest about the de-dollarization movement. Your Federal Reserve is focused on a central bank digital currency. The BRICS nations are buying gold at record rates. And you saw the inflation report the last 2 days. You know why. Short break. Lomez on the other side.
All this nonsense, all this spin, they can't handle the truth.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, thank you. We're going to get back to John Keeperman here in a moment. I want to have a news break right now with our international head out of Rome. He's actually in Rome today, in Rome proper. You'll be back with us tomorrow from the studio, Brother Harnwell. Tell me, we got breaking news of this assassination attempt. Slovakia, we had on the morning show, we had Pasovic join us. Also, news analysis we're going to do tomorrow in depth on the Vatican's deal with the Chinese Communist Party that's kind of going through a lot of scrutiny right now. Your thoughts, brother?
Well, Steve, this is shocking news coming out of Ukraine. Robert Fico, who's the Prime Minister of Slovakia, he has a pro-Putin line, but he and the President Pellegrini, they're from the same party. They have been pushing a line in Slovakia, which has become ever more hostile to the number of Ukrainian refugees that are there. And in fact, they were proposing to use these select European funds to build shelters, accommodations directly on the Ukrainian border, because the mood in Slovakia had turned over the last 2 years so against the hosting of these Ukrainian refugees. So look, I'd say this is a sign of the times, what's happened today. But more than that, it's really an indication of the economic and social crisis which has followed this war in Ukraine, and it's brought basically to this point of an unmanageable tension. So, Steve, look, the point is there were going to be accusations, suggestions as to who's behind this, but I'd simply point right now to the demonstration of the fact that this war is creating a situation across Europe, here specifically bordering Ukraine, which has really destabilized the country.
2019, as you know, I was with you in Rome, and I came out very hard when it was first leaked that the Vatican was doing a deal with the murderous Chinese Communist Party. We're going to do more in-depth tomorrow, but that's getting a lot more scrutiny now, a lot more questions about exactly why the Jesuit Pope is in business with the Chinese Communist Party. Your thoughts are why you're near the Vatican.
Well, look, the whole thing about the Vatican, it's ridiculous. The Vatican's treaty with Beijing, which it has never released. I think it's now been renewed. I think this is probably the third time it's been renewed. But I just dwell on this point, Stephen. It's a point that you yourself have made tirelessly. We, the Catholic laity, are prohibited from having any say whatsoever in the nomination of bishops, of Catholic bishops. That is a right which the Vatican, right across Christendom, jealously guards to itself. And yet, with regard to this brutal, murderous crime syndicate, which is the CCP, the Vatican has ceded this discretion and is sharing it with generals who, during their day diet, daytime, Steve, they're pulling down Catholic churches and Protestant churches, by the way. They're pulling down the church movement, and they've ceded the right of choosing bishops to this murderous regime, which they will not give to us here in the West. And I think that just shows the absolute hypocrisy of the Vatican's position, Steve. And no wonder they haven't released the text.
Unbelievable. Ben, we'll get you back on tomorrow from the studio, have some more good meetings, and we'll talk to you. Thank you for stepping out and joining us here for a news break.
Thank you so much, Steve. God bless.
Ben Harnwell, head of international out of Rome. Remember, Dr. Sean Rowland and the team, at the same time, right after that, at 19, when I was all over the Vatican for doing a secret deal with the Chinese Communist Party, a secret deal that they've never put forward. We've never seen all the text of it. Shortly thereafter, we got hit with a bioweapon. Dr. Sean Rowland and the team over at Jace Medical took Rosemary's book and the one about the supply chains, Rosemary Gibson, and what did they do? They built a business around it. Right now, they've got a business that gets you around any types of shortages in your medicinal supplies. Go check it today. jacemedical.com/Bannon, jacemedical.com/Bannon. Talk to Dr. Sean Rowland and their team. They got experts in every state, because this has got to be state by state. They'll walk you through what you need to know to make sure you're never short of the medicine you need, ever. So get ahead of the curve there. jacemedical.com/Bannon. So John Keeperman /Lomez, let's go back to the beginning. What did you actually do? What were you doing that would cause the Guardian, the revered progressive left Guardian, to get an Antifa guy to literally looked like years to do this investigation and then breathlessly put it out in an 8 or 10,000 page lead story, the lead story in the Guardian, I think on Monday morning. What did you actually do? What were you doing that triggered them so horribly?
Yeah, it's actually flattering in some sense that this guy would take so much of his time to dig through my biography going back to middle school to try to make a news story out of it. As much as I can tell, it's, again, the success of this publishing company, Passage.Press, and some of the interest we've generated from more mainstream conservative figures, and them seeing the potential for kind of these new lines of thinking to open up the culture that they are rightfully fearful of, because the sorts of ideas that are coming out of our sphere generally do question in very harsh terms what some of these default sort of liberal hegemonic agendas are, and demonstrate some dissatisfaction with that agenda, and also point the way forward to new possibilities. So I think they rightfully see this in terms of an intellectual, ideological exercise, in terms of a cultural exercise, a threat to their hegemony over the culture. Now, me personally, I think I've had some modest, success writing in various publications. I wrote a defense of Douglas Mackey, who is on trial right now. He was actually convicted in federal court last October for charges stemming from a meme that he posted on Twitter under the Ricky Vaughn handle, which I think you've discussed on this show before. They didn't like that. Yes. They don't like people defending free speech. And so my defense of free speech, which was pointed to twice in that article, both of Douglas Mackey, and then when I was an academic, I had the audacity to defend Milo Yiannopoulos coming to campus on free speech grounds. They don't like this. They don't like free speech. And I've also defended people like Kyle Rittenhouse. And I think the connective tissue here is what you were talking about previously, this coalition of what Steve Saylor, who's one of our authors, calls the coalition of the fringes. And you have the credentialed elite class on the one hand, and their clients who are, the millions coming over the border, and the violent underclass on the other hand. And what binds this coalition, this democratic liberal coalition, is their contempt for the middle, the contempt for core Americans, people who, in my view, are represented by Kyle Rittenhouses of the world, who are merely trying to defend what they perceive as their country and the things that they care about, the places they live, their families, their businesses, etc. And so this is what the left is coming after, and this is what we are trying to defend.
I want to go back to this about the thinking on the faculty. If you're in the faculty lounge or just hanging out at the faculty club or the faculty senate, can you have a free debate? And are places like the New York Review of Books, I'll throw one out as kind of an intellectual rarehead, or the Atlantic.
These are totally off limits.
Can you have the discussions? Because what you just mentioned those folks didn't sound all that radical, sir.
No, they're not. This is common sense. These are common sense positions held by the majority of Americans. But this is off limits in a college faculty lounge. I lived a kind of dual life when I was there. And I have to say, and I'm sure some of my former colleagues are listening, are very surprised to see me on a show like yours. I like these people on an interpersonal level, and some of them were rather interesting and open to robust intellectual discourse. But for the most part, academia selects for bureaucrats. It selects for yes men. It doesn't select for people who are creative or experimental with ideas. It might have at one point, it no longer does. And what you see instead is a kind of closed-minded, homogenous thinking. Nobody wants to rock the boat. The way that you advance in academia is not by introducing new and innovative ideas or challenging these pieties. It's by going with the flow. It's by consenting almost mindlessly to the prevailing winds. And that's what I saw in my time there, over a decade there. That's what I've heard from others. You see academics getting fired all the time. And really what happens is, rather than heterodox academics being silenced, that certainly does happen, heterodox thinkers are filtered out of the system before they even get a chance to get to the faculty lounge. And that's really the problem. It's a selection problem.
How did you get through it? Tell us about your personal journey. I mean, how did you get all the way to be on the faculty of a pretty renowned university, particularly in the West? How did that work, given the fact that you've got you kind of think outside the box, or you think definitely different than the machine?
That's absolutely true. And I think the way I was able to preserve my sanity was by going online. So I have this anonymous Twitter account where I could actually explore the ideas that were interesting to me. And when I was in the faculty lounge, it was like any other sort of corporate experience. And there are millions of people around the country who have this same experience. They just keep their head down. They show up at work. They do their job. They collect their paycheck. They go home. And it's when they get home in their private space that they're actually allowed to, think the things they want to think, or have discussions that are maybe a little bit more difficult over beers with their friends. So I don't think my situation was unlike many others. Now, I think probably some colleagues would make the claim that I was being deceptive. I did work on the faculty union, and I was supportive of, the faculty union, and I wanted good pay for my colleagues and myself. And so I think the assumption just was, here's a nice boy, and he must be on our side politically. It doesn't even cross their mind that someone in their midst might not share their beliefs. And so I was able to just sort of carry on keeping my mouth shut. And then when I would get online, that's where I was able to, actually say the things that I believed.
I've always told people, I said, when you really get to know the public and intellectuals like yourself, whether it's in Bacalomaz or not, the Benzes, the revolver guys, all of them, I say you do know slumming when you're on the right, and particularly the far right, as we are, with people. What's your assessment? I said, hey, we pound for pound, because it seems like the left and the progressive kind of ossified, right? It's just in fact, I think we may have a clip about that from Morning Joe that we could play. But am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong at all. That culture is completely ossified. There is nothing new or generative coming out of the left, and it's precisely because they've closed themselves off to new ideas. And this wasn't previously true of the left, not in my lifetime. The left used to be the side of free speech and open inquiry and sort of avant-garde cultural movements. It's become deathly terrified of saying anything new or outside the box. The other thing that's happening is in a situation like this, there is an asymmetry between right and left. So those of us on the right are used to being in these leftist milieus. We're surrounded by liberals all the time, so we understand what they think, and we could articulate back to them their beliefs. They are not used to being surrounded by people on the right. And so they don't have a good theory of mind for what people on the right believe. And this is why, again, they use these terms like far right, fascist, that really are just empty signifiers, because they can't distinguish between these different gradations of belief. They just want to lump us all in as quote unquote villains. And that's really sort of their entire framework.
Hang on a second. We're going to play. Morning Joe had a shocker this morning. Let's go ahead and play this. We'll come right back to Lomez.
If you open your eyes and you look at an American city, especially in the American West, it's less out here. It's more in California, Oregon. You have to be honest with yourself. And I think that's what a lot of the progressive movement hasn't done. And that makes it ripe for a lot of reporting. It also makes it ripe for a little bit of fun, because they're just like refusing to see reality. So if you look at reality, you see the absurdity.
Mm-hmm. Nellie, do you think some of the most extreme elements of progressivism are given too much attention? They're amplified too much, that TikTok, for example, feeds them a narrative about Israel that feeds some of the protests that you see on college campuses, which many of those students were there in good faith. They don't like what they're seeing. Like we've said, we don't like what we're seeing on the ground in Gaza in terms of the humanitarian crisis. But we learned later what most people suspected. There were professionals behind a lot of it. Do you think that we talk too much in the media or other places about the most extreme elements?
I think that happens for both sides, but I think when it comes to the progressive movement, yes, very much, because the average American is really normal politically, is mixed politically even, is a complicated political mess, doesn't fit in one of these boxes. The reason that the progressive movement is talked about so much, or has such a prominent place in our conversation, is because a lot of our American media in the mainstream is super progressive and bought into a lot of these ideas and a lot of these philosophies. And so it became the operating system of a lot of our great media companies.
Okay, tomorrow I'll play more of that. We didn't have time today with the hearings and everything, but this was a bombshell. Book's called After the Revolution. Morning, Mika. Mika was so gobsmacked, she didn't talk. She just kind of sat there with that, resting bitch face and gave her stink eye. Pretty shocking. Jonathan, you heard right there. That's from a progressive actually writing about how radical, how out of touch progressives are. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And the piece of that stuck out for me was this aversion to the truth. That progressives are sort of blinded themselves to certain realities because they're inconvenient, because they reflect poorly on their ideology. And the antidote to that, and what we ought to be doing on the right, our advantage is if we tell the truth. And we hold a mirror up to the world, and we say what is reflected in that mirror. We say it clearly. We say it with our chests out, and don't hide from the truth. And to be the side that has a monopoly on truth is going to be the side that wins ultimately.
Okay, we only got a couple of minutes, but they hated you for being Lomez, but they hated you, I think, even more for being Passage Press. Tell us about the book publishing company. Where do people go? I know you've given a discount to all the War Room readers to go. Tell us some of the titles and why The Guardian, above all, hated your book publishing operation. Absolutely. So go to passage.press, use promo code Bannon on all our books. We have a new anthology from Steve Saylor. We have some historical classics from the likes of Ernst Jünger, one of the great memoirists of World War I and one of the most interesting figures of the 20th century, who wrote against totalitarianism, among other things. We have a great memoir from the White Army General, Peter Wrangel, Always with Honor, that talks of, and Wrangel almost single-handedly, while the rest of Tsarist Russia sort of fled from the Bolsheviks, stood tall and fought against the Bolsheviks. And I think there's so many good lessons for your audience in particular. These are pieces of history that they may not be familiar with because they are selectively excised from our curriculums. This is not about a race. This is the white Russian general who fought on the side of the good guys. Also, younger, they talk about saying the single best, I think, real memoir of World War I was Storm of Steel. If you read that about the early days of von Schlieffen, I think it was just absolutely. He's a magnificent writer. So
go buy our Storm of Steel for sure.
Storm of Steel. If you get a discount on that, I cannot recommend a book about man facing war than Storm of Steel. The humanity of it, the cruelty of it, the horror of it. You see World War I up close and personal. Look, we look forward to having you back. We're glad you're out behind the Lomez, and I think you've got you're going to be a great leader in this MAGA movement. And I'm particularly glad that you kicked off by having The Guardian, the great paper, the progressive left, global, literally clutching their pearls still. So we'll make sure we give them these clips so they can chew on that. They can suck on that. Jonathan, where do people get you? What's the best way to get to Passage Press? What's the best way to get to your site? What's the best way to get your social media?
Yep. On Twitter, at Passage Press, also at Lomez L0M3Z. And you can go to our website, passage.press, promo code Bannon. God bless you, Steve. Thank you for this.
Thank you, brother. If you do nothing else but pick up a copy of Storm of Steel, this will be worth the segment. It is a magnificent, magnificent book. Can't speak highly enough about it, about the reality of war, and particularly the brutality of the war that kicked off the new dark age of the 20th century, World War I. Okay, Lou Dobbs going to follow us, as always, the Lou Dobbs Show. We're back at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We were so jammed today. Thank the War and Posse for hanging in there with me, particularly that you guys got a huge shout out at the Weaponization Committee by the Democrats. The Congresswoman, I think, from Virgin Islands, right, did a pretty good job focusing on the power of the War Room Posse. Want to make sure also get to our sponsors, Home Title Lock. We need to have you at the ramparts. Where we don't need you is worrying about a second mortgage taken out by a hard money lender against your home. Make sure you know that your home title is safe and secure. Your castle can't be secure until you know that your title is. HometitleLock.com/Bannon. Go immerse yourself in information. Natalie Dominguez and the team over there are going to take care of you. Okay, Lou Dobbs is next. Maybe, you end a day with Sacred Human Health, get a beef liver to get the power. Once again, just go check out what your compadres are saying. Lou Dobbs next. We're back here at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning in the War Room.